and looking forward to more of the same. The weather conditions as they were yesterday, bright blue skies, full sunshine, the vaguest whiff of a breeze, absolutely perfect. The drivers revelling in the new tarmac here at Silverstone, laid over the winter, providing smoother surface but greater grip, and with 44 cars coming out to play in this two-driver race, it should run over 50 minutes. There is plenty to play for, but a huge host of people here to enjoy the Lamborghini action, and they'll be heading out onto the grid. The VIPs just waiting for the cars to trickle round this full 5.9 kilometre circuit, 18 turns packed in, but the local countryside where Buckinghamshire meets Northamptonshire looking at its absolute finest. Air temperature 23.3 degrees, track temperature 33.6. That continues to climb. Only an hour or so ago it was down at 26 degrees, but nothing the tyres cannot handle. But for people out around the circuit, it's a wonderful opportunity to take the photos they require of the 44 runners and some absolutely fabulous liveries on these new Super Trofeo Huracan Evos, new for this year and designed to be just that little bit easier for some of the less versed drivers to go out and perform in. This was one of the quick cars yesterday, 71, and that went very well indeed, most notably in the hands of its lead driver. As I say, it's a two-driver race, but that started from pole position yesterday after an absolutely brilliant lap by Loris Spinelli. JC Perez, American racer, also enjoying the action in that, but that gradually slid slightly down the order come the end of the race. Finished it, led early on in the first half of the race in Norris's hands, but JC Perez still came home as the leading Pro-Am car in fourth overall. So look out for that 71 in this race. But today it will be JC Perez starting that off. Number 8 was another car that featured very strongly yesterday, showing some really good pace. And in fact, that started right near the front of the grid. We'll start on pole position today. Colla and Edoardo Liberati. Liberati is the flyer in that car. Many of these driver lineups are balanced. That's a Pro-Am car, so of course you expect one of the drivers to be less experienced. In this case, it's Hans-Peter Colla from Switzerland. And the 72 car has been another one that's been frequently at the front end of the field. And let's face it, with 44 cars out to play, it's not always easy, but Geoffrey Donada really made that fly for Antonelli Motorsport yesterday, showing me Kiko Galbiati. First few cars now arriving on the grid, the rest still working their way around, some taking a sneaky little extra run through the pits so they can do another exploration lap. Now riding down the Wellington Straight with Tim Richards, Imtech Racing, under the access bridge where you come in to get to the inside of the circuit. The RDC Clubhouse on the right hand side, turning into Brooklands here. Again, it's a really late entry, and then immediately you have to start straightening the car up and getting into position for the first of the two Luffields. With a good exit from the Luffields, of course, we're going at a slow pace because we're approaching the grid. There's the pit entry on the right. This is Woodcote. Wonderful corner to get that right, so you can have a really good run down all the way to the first corner to Copse. Yes, we're starting on by the original pits, the heritage pits as they're now called, not the ones with the big wing on top. Whole meeting based down at this end of the circuit, which means, I think, a good thing, Copse is the first corner, and that's tricky at any time of the year. Any track conditions, Copse is a corner that you can't see a great deal of. We're looking from Copse back down towards the front of the grid, the Lamborghini pace car, and behind it the Lamborghini Urus, large and yellow, sits high above. A performance car on stilts in many ways. It's showing the amount of input that Lamborghini has got in this Trofeo series, Super Trofeo series. Also there's one in North America, there's one in Asia, Middle East, and they're all combined. The creme de la creme compete in the World Finals at the end of the season, and Lamborghini being one of the massive success stories on the racing scene in the last 3 or 4 years in particular. And the very key to that is the fact that we have 44 cars that are coming to play. In fact, I think we might have 45 today. We lost one yesterday, but everywhere I look, the cars coming around towards the grid, trying to weave their way into their grid positions, but cars are plenty. Again, with the track temperature continuing to rise in this wonderful late spring weather. It's been a pretty grim early part of spring in Northern Europe, but certainly seems to be coming good right now. And with the majority of these cars having two drivers, of course, the spare driver, the second driver, will be seen wandering onto the grid, possibly overalls down. But let's go down to the grid. And one of the stars yesterday in car number 29 was Gerhard Therese, and Dakota has made straight to have words with him.
Gerhard, first, front of the grid, this is going to be a great race. You've got a big field of Lamborghinis behind you. How is this going to play out?
Yeah, it's amazing. If you see the grid with 48 cars, it's really amazing to be in front row. Axel did a great job. It's not so easy in qualifying with so many cars to manage a free lap, but he did it, and yeah, it's just perfect. And I hope that we are more lucky today, and I think a podium must be possible.
And yeah, yesterday, as you said, you had a bit of a difficult day. Today's definitely going to be better. We've got Axel starting in the car. Is he going to be able to roar off and get into first?
I think so. I hope. I will cross all my fingers. The most important is that he don't crash and no contact, and give me a good car, that we are also in the second stint quite fast, and then I think we can be on the top.
Maybe cross your toes too if you can. Good luck.
So Gerhard Therese sharing with he's Austrian, he's sharing with Zimbabwean racer Axel Jeffries, so certainly very, very cosmopolitan, the grid, and still the cars keep on arriving. Last few just going through Brooklands and Luffield now, and the others just coming out of Woodcote to snake their way, as this Antonelli car is, up through towards their grid positions. 44, possibly 45 cars coming out to play today. The race scheduled to be 50 minutes with a driver change halfway through or thereabouts. There's a period when the pit window is open, and really, again, most notably when you have Pro-Am pairings, you often have a really quick driver paired with a driver who's merely quick as opposed to super quick, and so which one's in first? That's why the order continually changes. And yesterday in the racing we saw things ebbing and flowing very much through all 50 minutes. And as Gerhard Therese said, it's not always easy to find space with all the traffic to get your qualifying lap in. So some of the qualifiers are further back than they really ought to be, bearing in mind their natural pace. So that element has to be sorted out as well. Sounds though a car was leaving the pits remarkably late there. You could hear the engine note in the background. That's not on the track that we're looking at, but it sounds like it's just gone exiting from the pits up towards Maggots and around. And there is the great Lamborghini Urus, 10th edition of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, but this was the 4x4 that Lamborghini launched over the winter, and that is the lead car. Certainly not easy to miss that one. So there are the cars that we're looking at down on the grid. Conrad Motorsport, sort of aquamarine or turquoise on black, a long-standing livery. Axel Jeffries will start there, and then hand over to Gerhard Therese. And alongside, on the front row, they've got a VS Racing Lamborghini Edoardo Liberati with the second driver in the number 8 car. That'll be started by Koller from pole position. I think the last cars are now, apart from that one that sounds like it was leaving the pits late, seem to be in position. Great to see people bringing their supercars and their favourite road cars to the circuit as well, and certainly come into the middle with all the Blanc action. There is a considerable sea of supercars in the paddock to see, as well, of course, these very supercars, the cars that go out to race. And on pole position is the number 8 Liberati Koller car. Heinz-Peter Koller from Switzerland, Liberati from Italy. And nice, easy livery to pick out that, the white with the thin blue and yellow lines. A lot of these teams run up to 4 cars, and so you have various little tweaks. One will have a blue stripe with a red small stripe, and vice versa on a sister car. As long as they can keep looking different, that wins my vote. But with that little heat shimmer on the circuit, people having a look. The number 2 drivers waving goodbye, heading back to the paddock, not for lunch of course, but simply to prepare for when they get to take their part in the race around the halfway mark. 50 minutes of racing lined up ahead of us. Yesterday, victory went to the number 44 crew. That car starting 4th on the grid, which is Vito Postiglione and a young Polish racer who looked very strong indeed, Karol Bash, starting from the 4th position on the grid. So it could be a super good weekend for them. They won yesterday's race ahead of the number 5 Alto is Zampieri car. That's starting down in 7th, and the car that finished 3rd yesterday is starting down in 10th, which is the 32 entry from Benaldi Motorsport. But let's go down to HP Collar, who's down on the grid. He's talking to Dakota from pole.
HP, now will it be pole to finish?
Let's see. I mean, it depends on the race luck, and we'll see.
Ooh, watch out, there's tyres behind you. So yesterday you had a pretty good day, but many improvements to be made. Are you going to make those improvements today?
I'm quite sure it can only get better. We were a little bit unlucky, but now I think we are ready for more.
And how much are you enjoying doing the racing?
Quite a lot. So Eduardo will do a good start, I'm quite sure, and then I just have to carry it home.
Now the Pro-Am category is actually pretty high here, you know, just as high as the pros. As you can see, you're on pole. That's crazy.
Oh, it's quite something, yes. So let's do it and finish on podium. That's of course the goal for today.
Best of luck.
Thanks.
Yes, with the problems yesterday, HP Collar and Eduardo Liberati ended up in 23rd position. A little slip here or there, and with a field as competitive and as tightly packed as the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, you really can take a tumble. And also the drivers will all have been noticing that people were getting pinged for track limits excess, and penalties were handed out for those as well. So keep it between the white lines, ladies and gentlemen. So let's take a look at this amazing field of cars. How's this for colourful? Silverstone looking at its very best, and these cars, the level of presentation as we ride on the Segway down the grid, absolutely remarkable. You can pick out your own favourite race liveries as we go, but you see there is pretty much every colour under the sun. And the 71 car, I think we might have just slipped past that, is very dramatically nosed. You'll see, it's coming up on the left-hand side. Look at the sort of teeth on the nose. The green car with the orange markings to make it look like eyes. Always bright. The ARC Bratislava yellow car on the right-hand side of the track. Some more sober ones with just little flashes of colour as we work down through the field. But it's a long ride on the Segway. It's a long walk when you walk down the grid with 40 plus cars. But now we're working down to about the halfway point on the grid. And for the drivers here, yes, they might gain 2 or 3 places at the start. That's their hope, but they're still a long way from the front. But with pit stops halfway through the race, certainly if people get things right, they also maybe get the rub of the green, they can move up the order. But for those that qualified badly, it is a mountain to climb from the back end of the grid. And now we look at the final car. So that means we do have the 45 cars on the grid, and I think it should be number 83 at the back there. But really, really bright conditions here at Silverstone. So all looking fabulous, and now a high shot looking down in the front row. The number 8 on the pole side, which is the pit wall side, number 29 alongside on the outside the front row. Second row is 12 and 44. 44 is the bright blue car on the side away from the pit wall, the side closer to the grandstands, and that University Technical College in the background, the building you can see with the red flank on the left end. What a place to come and do your studying, overlooking the circuit at Silverstone. Time for the grid to be cleared, so at the various gaps in the wall, the gates will be closed once they've gone through, but at the back end of the grid there's an opening, and again up towards the front end. So gradually we get to see these cars in all their beauty, waiting for the start of the 50-minute race. Just to reiterate, yesterday victory went to Vito Postiglione and Carol Bash in the number 44 car. Giovanni Alto and Daniel Zampieri were second, the number 5, and then Frederick Blomstedt and Patrick Kujala third in 32. Top Pro-Am runner was in fourth, JC Perez and Loris Spinelli. We also had Am Cup racers and Lamborghini Cup towards the tail of the field. So a mix, and with these various classes, you have every opportunity to be in the right class to try and take a tilt at least for class win. Now off go the cars on their formation lap, hoping everybody will go. 83 is indeed the final car on the grid. Because that had problems in qualifying. In fact, it didn't get set a time because it was off at the side of the circuit. So that is why 83 is starting stone last. Here is the starting grid. And it's Liberati and Collar, the number 8, the white car on pole position. Axel Jeffries, Gerhard Therese at 29 on second. Dennis Lind, Frederick Larsen, third, and yesterday's winners, Bass and Postiglione. They own 44, starting from 4th. Artline Racing, they look as though they're right in the mix. Zampierio And Altoe in number 5, look out for them. They were good yesterday. They're starting 7th, so that's still pretty close to the front of the grid. As you go down, you can see this, by the names, the spread of nationalities. And also not just one nationality in one car, many of them most peculiar combinations of people, but that's the sort of thing that racing can do, bring people together from all around the world. 17th place, Perez and Spinelli. That's a car that does have the pace, particularly in Spinelli's hands, to come rocketing up the order. So halfway down the grid, 22nd position, Giannoni racing on his own. A handful of drivers, as you can see, 2 more, Cedric Lima and Krebs, also running without a driver change. So they should find quite warmish work today in this late spring sunshine at Silverstone. But for these drivers, they've all been revelling in this new tarmac. Silverstone was re-tarmacked over the course of the winter, and they've just found that extra bit of grip that, particularly for the drivers with less experience, gives them that vital thing. It's called confidence, feel of the car, confidence it'll do what it wants, so they can be more accurate on their braking points. Maybe in many other cases also start to put the power down a little bit earlier. It just makes the cars feel more balanced. So we know for sure the car starting 41st. Tim Richards has an onboard camera. We've had some footage from it. Here is what you call the tail end of the grid, but you could still see in the background about another 12 cars sneaking around the lap. But right now we're waiting for the field to come back into sight of the main grandstands. It's the number 8 car leading the way round, and it's Liberati who's starting. Axel Jeffries will be starting alongside him in the number 29 car for the rolling start, and then Dennis Lind and Karel Bass, they will be on row 2. There is Karel Bass's car, the bright blue one. Sergei Afanasiev, metallic blue car from 5th on the grid. So again, this is Tim Richards' view. He's quite some way back down the order. Drivers doing what they have to do. Get the heat in your tyres. Concentrate the mind. They're going through Farm, Village, the loop. Now they're starting to come down the front runners down the Wellington Straight. Back markers though, so having to bunch up as they get to Farm. But also try not to get too far behind. Those at the back of the field want to advance and get up into 2x2 formation. Shouldn't overtake the car in front of you, of course. Half 11 here at Silverstone. Wonderful sunny morning, and for these drivers, many of them who might have had rain on previous visits, they're now seeing the circuit at its very best. The front runners just following the Lamborghini Urus lead car around into and through Brooklands. Those at the tail of the field probably only just coming under the bridge on the Wellington Straight. So the cars need to get into 2x2 formation. They're doing that as they go into and through the Luffields. The back markers need to move up as close as they possibly can, or they'll be far behind when it comes to the start, because in 2x2 formation, Liberati and Axel Jeffries, the white car of Liberati, the turquoise and black car of Jeffries, side by side as they come through Woodcote. They can't go yet. The driver in 3rd place really started to push. Dennis Lind, he's going to try and make a move. Can't pass before the start-finish line, but he's almost alongside. And in fact, the nose is in front of Jeffries, 3 abreast. Up to the first corner they go. It looks though Dennis Lind up the inside will make it work. And squeezed in the middle, Eduardo Liberati loses out around the outside. Holding 2nd place goes Axel Jeffries. Will everybody else get through Copse? So far, so good. Still half the field to go. So Motorhead leading the race. I never thought I'd say that. But Dennis Lind, super strong start. Puts his black and white entry into the lead of the race. So really good start there for the Target Racing car. Sims 2 losing a bit of ground onto the hanger straight for the first time, with the rest of the field still streaming through Beckett's down towards Chapel in the background. Opening now maybe a 2-car length advantage. So that really positive start. Getting a move on before the start-finish line, but not putting his nose in front, so he can't be pinged for a jump start. Dennis Lind looks to have did it absolutely to perfection, and now starting to stretch his legs. Bird taking off in the foreground. You could just see there as the field streaks through the twisty middle section of the lap. Oh, we've got a spinner at Club. Oh, well, how everybody missed that remains to be seen, but that was a very fortunate evasion. That was around about 8th place, I think, that went for a spin. No such problems for Dennis Lind, though. That really positive start has been rewarded. Axel Jeffries staying with him, but there's a bit of a gap back to third place as Liberati is now being pushed, and really being pushed very hard by Carol Bash in the bright blue number 44. Carl went well yesterday, was the number 5, the orange entry, and we're looking for more of the same today, and it's certainly working its way forwards. Yeah, number 5 hunting very well indeed. Daniel Zampieri at the wheel. No wonder that's going so well. Just behind James Pull. Has he just gained a position or lost a position? Quite hard to see there. I think James Pull held on with number 3 ahead of him, or has he just lost? Well, we'll find out. Over the start finish line to complete the first lap. It's Dennis Lind by 3/4 of a second. That's his advantage over Axel Jeffries. Then there's a nearly 2-second gap back to Eduardo Liberati, Carol Bash, Sergei Afanasiev, Daniel Zampieri. Yeah, he did move ahead of James Pull. That was what I thought I had seen. Nose to tail coming past, some side by side over the start finish line, but this is an astonishingly good first lap and a bit from Dennis Lind. Brilliant start. And he's building on it. 39 Afanasiev in the metallic blue entry, now being pushed very hard indeed by Daniel Zampieri. So you can see most of those behind are fairly evenly spaced, but the person trying to make the moves is Zampieri in the Adria Raceway entry there, but he's got to get his way around Afanasiev, because if he doesn't, he's going to have some of the others like James Pull really starting to close in. In 72, Geoffrey Bernarda also going very well in 8th. He was one of the stars in the second half of the race. Of course, yesterday's starting drivers are the ones that go second today, and vice versa. So it's gone out to 1.1 seconds, nearly 1.2. Dennis Lind continues to stretch away from Axel Jeffries. Liberati holding on to third place, but don't forget he was the pole starter. He'll be really ruining A, his poor start, and B, the fact that he's fighting so hard, or being made to fight so hard by Carol Bass in the 44 entry, that he's allowing the first two to continue their escape. There is Liberati, there is Carol Bass, tiny bit of a gap, Sergei Afanasiev, and then the orange car of Daniel Zampieri tucked in behind James Pull, sitting in his slipstream, British driver in the number 3 entry in 7th place, and then Geoffrey Bernarda continues to close in right behind in the 72. 2 laps now completed, it's gone out to 1.46 seconds, the gap between Dennis Lind and Axel Jeffries. So at this point in the race, it's Conrad Motorsport in second, being led though by Target Racing. So certainly this really strong run from Dennis Lind. Dennis, though, will be handing over to Simon Larsson, so the Dane to the Swede, but Dennis is the star in that car. He's the real pro in the pack. So one of the cars actually failed to start, Stephen Bourness, so we are down from 45 back to 44, so that must have been wheeled off the grid. Oh, and another car that's not going the way it should be, and it's now smoking, but that could be bodywork on a tyre. Can't tell you yet who that is. And though I seem to have given a clean bill of health to Dennis Lind for that astonishing start from third place, the start is under investigation. And another thing under investigation is cars 2 and 22 had contact at turn 9. Well, we saw 32, I think, was going for a spin, which would be Frederick Blomstedt. And there is a thought that maybe Mario Helista Kangas could have given him a tap. Anyhow, more later on that, and hopefully nothing more later about the start, because I didn't see anything too untoward. I still think the pole car of Liberati had its nose in front when they got to the start-finish line, but I wouldn't mind seeing a replay of that. But right now, what I can tell you is Dennis Lind is leading by 1.4 seconds and going away from Axel Jeffries, and behind the Zimbabwean racer there's about nearly a 2-second gap back now to Liberati, who's really been pushed very hard by 44 by Karol Bash, the Polish racer. So things have settled down now at the front of the field. Liberati in third place has now started to drop Karol Bash. He's just finally got a bit of breathing space. The person making the move is Geoffrey Bernarda. He hasn't gained a position yet, but he's right on the tail of James Pull in the battle for 7th position. Here is Geoffrey Bernarda, 72, as he goes through Cox, has a better exit, has a little look, but he's going to be on the wrong line when they get up to Maggots. So the white car will be sensible. The driver of the white car tuck in behind. Oh, and a little twitch. Well, actually not a little twitch, a big twitch from James Poole. And the hunter has become the hunted, or the hunted has become the hunter. But now he's got pressure from behind. 26 has tucked in to his slipstream, so it could go from bad to worse. And it's Schandorf who's at the wheel of 26. So some of these drivers have to wait for lap after lap to find a chink in the armour, a weakness that they can exploit. The car's incredibly equal and well balanced in terms of performance, and just things like running wide at Club there. That's turn 9. That's the corner that the stewards have been looking at most consistently. I don't think anyone in that little batch of cars quite transgressed, but some were not that far away from the possibility. It's car number 20, by the way, that we saw pulling off the side of the circuit. So that's unfortunate indeed for Davide Roda and Milos Pavlovic for Antonelli Motorsport. So that's one of the more fancied cars, and certainly one you'd see coming up the order. But alas, not this time. Start continues to be under investigation. So maybe more about that later, maybe not. Yet 10 minutes into the race, and there's been plenty of race action up at the front end, though continuing, I would suggest, a stretch clear. Dennis Lind 1.7 clear last time at one pole. Actually going the other way, 1.458 seconds down, and Edoardo Liberati starting to pick up his pace as well, was quicker than both the cars in front of him, and in fact the car in fourth, Carol Bass, is faster than all of them. So the order just slightly, not the order, but the gaps starting to move backwards and forwards as tyre temperatures continue to rise. Driver temperatures probably continue to rise. Maybe someone who pushed very hard earlier on is now going to start paying the price. And those who were gentle, there's James Poole's car down in 8th place, was passed not so long ago, but what's just happened is 26 went past on the last lap. We've seen so much 26 in the race, and that's Frederick Schandorf, who's sharing with Niels Lagrange. In fact, that's not a bad little driver pairing, so they could advance overall. And Sergei Afanasiev now has to cede position to Daniel Zampieri, so a change for 5th place. Zampieri continues his charge. Luckily, he's in one of the cars it's easy to pick out, bright orange, and we've got a pit visitor there. Can't tell you who it was, but that's obviously not at the point in the race where you're going to be doing a driver change, so that's a mechanical problem. Here is the race leader, and just looking absolutely peerless, the Dane, Dennis Lind. But don't forget, we did notice that Axel Jeffries found a quarter of a second on him last time around. I'll see in the first part of this lap. Yeah, Jeffries has taken another 1/10 of a second off him, so that really positive start from Dennis Lind. Plus, we still don't know the outcome of the investigation into the start. It might not have been anything to do with the front row. Now we've got 2 people off the circuit completely. ARC Bratislava car, I'm afraid. Hasn't brought out any untoward signals though, that's good, so everyone around them can continue to race at unabated speed. I reckon the fastest driver on this lap could well be Daniel Zampieri. Let's have a little look at his lap time. He crosses, no, in fact the overtaking manoeuvre cost him a little bit of speed. And the gap didn't go down between first and second, it went out by 1/1000th of a second. So 1.459 seconds is the gap between Dennis Lind and Axel Jeffries. Edoardo Liberati lapped marginally faster than the two of them. So the gap from first to third is now just down to 2.85 seconds. So it is coming down. So our lead grouping, ignore the white and blue Antonelli car in the foreground. There is the race leader, the black Motorhead livery with the white bodywork on the sides. Number 12 leading the race, Dennis Lind. And in second behind him, Axel Jeffries, Edoardo Liberati in third. Daniel Zampieri has just set his fastest first sector of the race, which is almost the fastest first sector of the race. So having moved ahead of Sergei Afanasiev up into 5th place, the number 5 entry is setting off after its next target, Carol Bash. 2.3 seconds clear, but that will come down, of that I'm sure. body language, a rear shot there of Axel Jeffries showed that he really appeared to be throwing his car into the sequence of corners and not afraid to chuck it in. So I think the body language is that of someone who's chasing and starting to eke away at the race leader's advantage. Where are the moves coming from? Definitely Zampieri continues to advance. There he is in the orange car. He's dropped Sergei Afanasiev and is setting off after Karel Bash. Karel slightly responding, so it could be quite a few laps before that gap comes down to striking distance. What I really fancy now is Liberati in third place is starting to close in on Axel Jeffries in second. Yes, he's down to just under a second down. 0.888 of a second, was lapping faster than both the first two to that point. And if anything, Axel Jeffries, who we saw really being very, very positive in trying to get the car to change angle, might have been the one who's taken a little too much life out of his tyres in the early stages of the race. '66 just had a little sight of that. That's going very well in the AM class. Leading the way, that's Andrei Lewandowski and American racer August Macbeth, and it's Macbeth at the wheel at the moment of the 66 car. 13th overall, 1 and a bit seconds down on the 34 entry, so that's a very good run for the AMs. 96 is second in that class, in the AM class, which is Raffaele Giannoni for Automobile Tricolore. So there is our race leader, just going out of the left-hand picture at the bottom of the screen. 1.8 seconds on the end of last lap, it was down to 1.6. So is he starting to fight back? Well, in fact, he is, because he just set the fastest first section of round one. There he is, Dennis Lind. Very, very quick through the opening section of sweepers. Giving chase, it's still Axel Jeffries and Edoardo Liberati in behind, but Liberati has had a good sequence of laps to really start to close in. He was very early stages of the race. He lost the lead on the run to the first corner and then started to fall away, leaving Lind and Jeffries to pull clear, but he seems to have woken up, got his focus back and is now starting to push. Karel Bash, very, very taily indeed as he goes through the lap fields. Still holding down fourth place. Took a victory yesterday, so on top form here. Yeah, that was a good response from Dennis Lind. It got down to about 1.4 seconds. He's now 2 seconds clear in the lead of the race. Whereas the gap from second to third is much, much smaller, 0.7 of a second. Yeah, great replay. We picked up the end of that in live action, with just how Karel Bash had gone too deep into the lap fields and really had to hurl the tail of the car around that number 4 entry, 44. Race leader number 12. The chasers got closer. He considered life, he considered action, he considered how to do it. Dropped back for a lap and then banged in. And, things seem to be settling down right now at this stage in the race. So 35 minutes to go. And it's Dennis Lind from Axel Jeffries, about 2 seconds in it. But I fancy a charge is starting to be mounted by Edoardo Liberati in the number 8 entry in third place overall. He's less than a second down on third, so plenty of potential for him. Now, how will the front markers deal with the back markers? That's an absolute key question, and we'll see, because it can against you. Now, how's that? This is group formation. This is the start. Let's have a look at the replay. Anything untoward? Look at the black and white car. It should be third on the grid. Which nose is in front on the start-finish line? If anything, I think it could be the outside front row. It could be Axel Jeffries that stuck his nose in front. But come what may, Liberati in pole position. The white car is suddenly back in third position. 29 was around the outside, and up the inside by the pit wall was that man that's now leading the race, Dennis Lind. And behind, well, Tim Richards suddenly had 2 or 3 cars finding an extra gear to go past him. That's a view from the tail of the field. Everyone very, very clean through Cox, which is most gratifying. So for the Race officials, they'll be delighted. The majority of the drivers have really listened to all warnings. Now back with live action. Tail end of the top 10, there's a little bit of a gap. I think, yes, it's about 9th to 10th. It's 4.5 seconds. Number 2 in 11th place. There we are, looking at him. So Jeffries now 2.2 seconds, the Zimbabwean behind the Dane, and then he's got 0.9 of a second of an advantage over Edoardo Liberati. But what we're getting is cars getting in close, but what we want to see is cars overtaking. Daniel Zampieri has probably won the prize for that so far this race. He is up in 5th place overall. Drive-through penalty for car number 12. Which one's number 12? It's the race leader. So he's just been pinged. They've looked again and again at that start of the race, and they've decided he got his nose in front, presumably, of the pole starter before the start-finish line. It was very close indeed. I thought it might have even been the car on the outside, car 29, but number 12 has been pinged for braking position too soon. Drive-through penalty. How far down the order that will drop him? Be outside the top 20. He's going to have to serve it relatively soon. So unfortunately for Dennis Lind and for his teammate Larson, that is a massive, massive disappointment. It was a real roll of the dice, a real gamble, trying to find an advantage, but just squeaking over what was acceptable. And unfortunately, that was going to cost them dear indeed. 66 continues, that's August Macbeth, we've just seen him. 13th overall, continues to lead the AM class. There is Dennis Lind snaking into pit entry. How many cars would have gone past by the time he gets to pit exit? So, new leader is Axel Jeffries. 2nd place now, Edoardo Liberati. 3rd place, Carol Bash. And there is the cluster up towards Maggots. Beckett's will follow. Still looking for the Motorhead cars to come out of the pit lane. Number 12. Pit exit is very slow when you've got to go through the pit lane. Road to speed limiter, still waiting for him, still waiting for him. I think that's about 15th, 16th, 17th position. There he comes. So maybe about 20th position for Dennis Lind. Well, there he is, back in the race, but just over half an hour remaining. So one senses he won't go back to the top of the race. It would be an absolute miracle if he did, but he may well work his way back towards the tail end of the top 10. So just full confirmation coming through, it was a jump start. Possibly by small margins, but you either are or you aren't. And now Liberati, he had over previous laps started to close on the 2nd place runner, Axel Jeffries, of course, with the demotion through that drive-through penalty of the number 12 crew. Dennis Lind is now charging his way back up the order, but the race lead is Axel Jeffries by a small amount, 0.6 of a second over the pole starter, Edoardo Liberati. And you really have to sense they go down the straight that there seems to be a little bit more speed under the heels of Edoardo Liberati. Pit window now open. People starting to dive in. I think that was Carol Bass who's come in as early as he possibly could, as soon as he possibly could, to hand over to Vito Postiglione. That could be a very sensible decision. Vito is the quicker of the pair, but only by a small margin, because Carol Bass has made massive strides through the early months of this year. What this has done with some of the front runners deciding to make a pit visit and others not, it breaks up the group or reduces the group from maybe 4 cars to 3 to 2 possibly, but then they could come back out all at the same time when all their pit stops have finished. They could be reunited on track or not, as the case may be, and it always jiggles and juggles the order when you've got a 2-driver race, particularly in a shorter event like this, 50 minutes. So we heard from Gerhard Tweresa on the group. It's his teammate we're looking at now. Axel Jeffries from Zimbabwe being pushed very hard indeed by Edoardo Liberati. And all along, as these drivers get to experience each other's abilities and sometimes demerits, sometimes areas they're not so strong at, you start to draw a picture, or they start to draw a picture of where and who they might like to be racing against, and also how good they are. So if you're stuck behind a car, cannot overtake, and that driver is a slower driver in the other pairing, then you really are suffering. So you've got to absolutely maximise your opportunity to overtake. A lot of them seem to think it involves driving out over the curbing and beyond. Of course, famously, that didn't work very well at all not so many years ago in Formula One for Kimi Raikkonen, who didn't know that the tarmac suddenly dropped away on the exit of Aintree, and he went bouncing across the track, slammed into the barriers. Other cars have done it since. Now the body language is that Jeffries is diving in, but Liberati is staying out for another lap. Well, I'm not totally surprised by that. Number 8 pushes on now, the leader of the race, led in theory across the start-finish line, but as we know at the start, there was the accusation that the starts had been jumped by Dennis Lint from the inside of the second row, and so it proved, thus the penalty. Well, pit stops, you can gain a little here, lose a little there, but that little cluster didn't help any of them. Still waiting for all the front runners to come and make their pit stops. About 8 or 9 of the top, those who are probably about the top 20, have not done so yet. The agonising time at a standstill. It's the Conrad Motorsport car, Gerhard Theresa will take that over from Axel Jeffries, gets going again. Now the 44 entry pitted a lap earlier, Vito Postiglione taking over at the earliest opportunity. Where are they going to fit back in together? So 44 Vito Postiglione, so many victories at this level of Super Trofeo. He's accelerating past the start-finish line, looking round to see where the best of the chasers is. Best of those who's made a pit stop. Pit window won't stay open for a huge amount longer. There is the 44 car, Vito Postiglione, looking for the longest run of the second drivers, so the car was in ASAP. But of course, Edoardo Liberati yet to call at the pits. Pit window still open, there's a message top of the screen. White car coming in, that could be number 8. Let's have a little look, not yet. Gaggle of cars going through the left fields together. There's Liberati, number 8. He's got traffic up ahead, doesn't want traffic, he wants to really, really smooth run into the pit lane. Club, such a tight little sequence of bends hatching on the grids there. That's on the Grand Prix starting line. We're starting from the Heritage Pits. We're based over the Heritage Pits this weekend, so very much in Northamptonshire. The other pit lane complex is in Buckinghamshire, just across the county border. So HP Collar, Heinz-Peter Collar, waiting to take over this number 8 entry. He won't have to wait a whole lot longer because Edoardo Liberati, the pit window is still open, but he's going to have to come in really pretty soon. So our timing screen's still distorted by the fact that some of the front runners have yet to make their pit stop. But why should they? The pit window is still open. Edoardo Liberati still leading the race. Daniel Zampieri, who worked up from about 6th. In fact, from 7th on the grid is now running 2nd. Sergei Afanasiev also hasn't pitted, he is 3rd. Still a few more pit visitors, not including Liberati yet. He's sitting on a 5.4 second advantage over Sergei Afanasiev. Daniel Zampieri has just dived into the pit lane. So almost all of the rapid front runners have made stops. Literally, I think 4 or 5 more to come in. Liberati among them. There is number 5, Daniel Zampieri, at the wheel, but not at the wheel. In fact, got out, and his teammate Alto is hopped on board. Check the doors closed sufficiently, and Giacomo waiting to go back out, or go out. Yeah, certainly the orange and black is one of the better looking race liveries because it works even on dull days. It's easy to pick it out. I always find cars with many different colours on them are very hard to identify. So, Giacomo Alto going into the race. Conrad car, Gerhard Theresa at the wheel now, was started by Axel Jeffries. Sweeping on to start another lap. Number 29, Theresa up to 9th. Will gain a couple more, and this is for the lead, and it was just enough so that Daniel Zampieri was so strong on the lead into the pits in the orange car, and he came out, he was a lap later, and nearly managed to get the jump. But don't forget that the faster car in the driver in the orange combo is Zampieri. Giacomo Alto is gaining speed all the time, but he's got very close to that Conrad Motorsport entry. Still waiting for Liberati in the pits. He's come into the pits now, so we'll have to see where he emerges. But he had, I think, enough of a cushion by having the faster driving in the pairing, the number 8 crew. There it is, trickling down the pit lane. He's going to hand that over to Hans-Peter Koller, who was very confident before the race when he was interviewed down on the grid, but don't expect quite the same speed out of Koller. So this could play into the hands of these two, the Conrad entry and then the number 5 from Antonelli Motorsport. Driver change, of course, in that from Zampieri to Alto in the orange car. Adria Raceway is the sponsor on the door. Yes, having just managed to go past, it looks as though Gerhard Theresa looks under control and starting to stretch away, albeit very slightly in that Conrad car. A bit of a twitch, and in fact a far better run through that sequence of corners from Alto. And that's out over the curbs at Aintree and beyond. So the number 8 car that came in from the lead, Eduardo Liberati, is out. Hans-Peter Koller on board. Pit lane has to have a minimum time. And the clock is ticking. The rivals are sweeping from Brooklands into the first of the Luffields, now the second of the Luffields. And accelerating out through the sweep into Woodcote they come as the number 8 car trickles down towards pit exit there onto the start-finish straight. Where will they come out? Will they be in front? Has Liberati's extra long run? He could still come in a few seconds' time if he chose, because the pit window's open. He has come out ahead of them. There he is, white with the blue stripe. Only just, that is super close. Can Theresa go ahead into Maggots? No, he can't, but this is no chance for Hans-Peter Koller to settle in, because he's being attacked immediately by Theresa and saved by the simple fact that the track needed to go to the right. He's still in front, but a better exit from Chapel by both of the cars behind. In fact, the 3rd car in the group with Hans-Peter Koller has got a really good run out of the corner. Sorry, Altoe in the orange car. Koller is in the car in the lead of the race, but not anymore, because down the inside goes Theresa. There was no chance to relax there for Koller. Straight into the thick of the battle as he came out of the pit lane. Now he's got to compose himself, but what he's got to do is stay in touch. I reckon this pair in terms of natural pace would be quicker, but if they can be slightly obstructed, he can get back onto their tail, he can start to travel with them. But I think already Koller is going backwards, so he had his moment of glory. He can say, I led the race all the way from Cops, where I joined the circuit, down to Chapel, but then he was monstered on the hanger straight, and now this battle looks like this is the battle we're going to see going all the way towards the end of the race. And I also just want to keep an eye out for number 12. Don't forget, of course, that went very well in the hands of Dennis Lind, rather too well at the start of the race. He was adjudged to have jumped the start when he went from 3rd to 1st. He then pulled away, but unfortunately a drive-through penalty has put the car back down into, he says, checking the screens, with that drive-through penalty down to 13th place. So for Larson, I'm afraid that's going to be a massive challenge even to get into the top 10. Simon Larson, Swede at the wheel. But this lead battle. So here we go. This is the lead group. It's the lead pair. It's Gerhard Twereza leading the way, tucked under him and really pushing very, very hard indeed is Altoe. So here they come down towards Copse. You can see the gap opening out already between the first two. Collar still holding on, but not for much longer. Looks like he's being challenged and pushed. So third, fourth, fifth, and sixth covered by next to nothing. 44 coming. He's lost a bit of ground there. Carol Bass. Expect that one to come forward all over again. When I say Carol Bass, of course, I mean he's handed the car over to his teammate. So it's Loris Spinelli who's just outside the top 10. So as you can see, the cars coming in groups, but it's the lead duo, Twereza and Altoe, who have pulled clear. And Collar going backwards. Niels Lagrange probably the next driver to pass him. They're the first two, negotiating the circuit almost as one. Nice bit of RC shot there. Long shot looking through the netting at the side of the circuit. Advantage there for Twereza, disadvantage for Altoe. As they got to club, he found a car in his way, had to go wide. Then there's a twitch by Twereza, but it worked out okay, but he couldn't quite get the traction through the corner. The stewards don't like the cars going right, wide right there. Oh dear. Car number 12 already had the drive-through penalty. Its pit limit under investigation. It might have left its pit stop just too soon, so bad can turn to worse. Drive-through penalties, though, definitely for cars 26 and 59. 26, Niels Lagrange is in 4th place. Disaster. And car number 59 not featuring at the front end of the field, so it's not costing them so greatly. In fact, down in 26th position. So the order continues to change. The advantage appears to be going to Gerhard Twereza. He's just starting to put a little bit of a gap, but some of that was down to negotiating traffic to Altoe. Then there's a gap back to Hans-Peter Collar. He's got plenty of company. Don't forget the 26 car is one that will be reporting to the pit lane for a drive-through penalty, so you can strike that out of the top 10 of this race. Just over a quarter of an hour remaining in this 50-minute race, the second of two Lamborghini Super Trofeo races here at Silverstone. British Jones enjoying the action. Who's going to go all the way to the finish? Oh, it's tightening up at the front again. Altoe is starting to get right on the tail of Gerhard Twereza. He hadn't lost pace, it simply was speed lost in traffic up at club a lap and a half ago. And there's Altoe pushing very, very hard indeed. A little bit more traffic for Gerhard Twereza, the Austrian in that 29, leading the way for Conrad Motorsport. Luckily for him, I think he's going to find it on the hanger straight, should be able to pass it easily. Vito Postiglione could just about see the bright blue 44 car in the background of the shot. This is first and second. They have a 4.5 second advantage over Hans-Peter Collar, and then it's very close indeed behind. Still hanging on in the lead of the race. Number 5 continues to attack. He's latching on all over again. It was 0.578 of a second last time around at the start-finish line. It looks like it's slightly less than that. Maybe a tenth has been hauled back again by the Adria Raceway entry of Giacomo Altoe. The back marker stays out of the way in very kind fashion indeed. Slightly tight line taken into the corner there. So trying not to lose any advantage. And still 4.5 seconds clear of the best of the Pro-Am runners, which is Hans-Peter Collar, who's sharing with the driver who led the early stages of the race. Well, in fact he didn't. He was third in the early stage race because he was jumped at the start, which was Edoardo Liberati. Now the front runners started to come through past the back markers, which quite often upsets the back markers. First two just sweeping through Woodcote though. Gap between them 0.263 of a second, so the gap is closing all over again. So Altoe isn't out of this battle. In fact, if anything, definitely he's closing in all over again. Niels Lagrange now up with Kelvin Snoot past in that lap. Both of them passed Hans-Peter Koller, but the 26 car Lagrange has got to come to the pits for a drive-through penalty, as has number 12. Number 12 worked its way back up into with Simon Larson up to 13. It fell to 14. That's got a drive-through penalty for not respecting the speed limit in the pit lane. Oh dear, that really is a no-no. But anyhow, let's ignore that, because this is the lead battle. 29 ahead of 5. Gerhard Twereza ahead of Giacomo Altoe, separated by about a quarter of a second. Actually looks as there's no traffic ahead of them for a slight while, so hopefully they can settle down and run at their natural pace, not be interrupted. So suddenly what we have at the moment is Kelvin Snooks will be moving up into third place. Niels Lagrange owes us a drive-through penalty. That will wreck his chances. So the Dutch racer will be smiling and Niels Lagrange will not be, because the drive-through penalty wasn't part of the script he wanted for this weekend for the Belgian. Yet to make that pit visit. So 12 and a bit minutes remaining. You can see the gap between first and second has ebbed and flowed, goes one way back by 0.3 of a second, comes back in the other direction. Giacomo Altoe under the access bridge over the Wellington Strait, sweeping down into Brooklands. A bit of a switch there from Gerhard Twereza, left it braking very late, managed to get the car settled. And while they've been fighting away, they've actually been dropping the grouping behind. It was led for quite a while by Hans-Peter Koller, but now it's Niels Lagrange in 26. But Lagrange owes us a drive-through penalty. Looking to see if he's going to come in and serve it this time. There is a car diving in. I think that could be his. I think, yes, white and blue. I think that's Lagrange. As he comes in very quickly. This isn't like reporting with a problem into the pit lane. This is trying to get through as fast as possible. So everyone else behind steps up as position. Yes, Lagrange, definitely the driver who dived into the pits. Gerhard Twereza seems to be settling down in the lead of the race, because the challenge from Giacomo Altoe comes at him and then drops away a bit, but it does give him periods of respite, and I'm sure that's very welcome indeed. So Kelvin Snooks now into third position, 9.5 seconds down, as Niels Lagrange completes his drive-through penalty and is now accelerating out of pit exit. Another visitor, it's number 12. Of course, that's had one drive-through or penalty already. It's coming for its second one, this time for not respecting the speed limit in the pits. Down again at the front, it went out to 0.67 of a second. So this is the second drive-through penalty for number 12. The car that got the jump at the start of the race, literally and metaphorically, sadly, and that led to a drive-through penalty. So the car that led away in the early stages, with company only from Axel Jeffries, really, in the 29 Conrad Motorsport car, has paid the price. His teammate has also paid the price for speeding the pit lane, but that could easily, I don't know if that was on the way out or it could have been linked on the way in, either to his pit stop or to his first drive-through penalty. Take your choice. Seems quite strange to see Patrick Kujla's name on the top left of the screen in 21st position. In fact, he's just risen as those others had their drive-through penalties. Patrick, normally a driver you'd see at the front end of the timing sheet. So from year to year, the situations can change. 0.2 of a second, traffic to negotiate pretty much around every lap for our race-leading duo. Gerhard Twereza holding on by 0.214 of a second from Giacomo Altoe, driver who's starting to close in on both of them, and fast. He's taken almost 2 seconds off from last time around was Kelvin Snooks. There was traffic in front of the lead duo. Kelvin appeared to have a clearer run, and inevitably when you've got one driver chasing another, they slightly hold each other up. Down onto the hangar straight they come. I think I saw in the background flashing into Chapel the car that's in third place now, Kelvin Snooks. Where can the orange car find a way past the turquoise and black one? The Conrad Motorsport car prevails for now. Where are the questions going to be answered? Actually, more than where they're going to be answered, where they're going to be asked. Are they going to be answered? But Alto is far from finished, but I think he must be starting to think, where is the gap that I can exploit? And always in a large field like this, 45 cars started the race. There's got to be someone who might do something untoward. It's just the law of averages, and that can provide an advantage for either of these two. But it's still Theresa from Altos. Kelvin Snooks closing in. Vito Postiglione, he was down in 8th. And that 44 car is now up into 4th place. He was the race winner yesterday with Carol Bass. Carol's had his stint in the car. And it's all changed in the second part of the race. Will they have a happy lunch or a less than happy lunch? Will they have lunch where they smell of bubbly, where they smell of champagne? To get that up on the podium, and they're one position away from that. Theresa, he's going to feel he's had quite a race, because Giacomo Alto is really stepping up to the mark and keeping him right on his toes. Suddenly this 50-minute race, we're within 7.5 minutes or so of the checkered flag being hung out. Can Theresa hang on at the front? Axel Jeffries did a very good opening stint. Positive start, but not too positive. That's why he didn't get given a drive-through penalty. And now cars number 71 and 34 under investigation. I didn't see a clash between the pair, but I would think that's the most likely element in that. And 71 was a car that showed good pace at various points through the weekend in the hands of Loris Spinelli. Suddenly, it might have just been the camera angle as they went through the Vale or down through the Vale and into Club. It seems there was a little bit more of an advantage for our race leader Theresa. 0.187 of a second between them on the last timing sector. I think it's actually gone out again. Ooh, actually, it might have been just a shadow. I suddenly thought that it was a left rear puncture on Theresa's car, but look at his pace leading the race for the 29 Conrad Motorsport car. Certainly doesn't look as though it's handling with a slow puncture of some sort. It's very, very, very close, and you start to think, if a move isn't made fairly soon, is it ever going to be made? Because maybe Theresa has done all he needs to do just to block off. He knows where the challenge is going to come from, or where he possibly has a weakness. He just covers it. But Giacomo Alto continues to push and push hard, looking for any other place changes. The gap continues to come down from the best of the rest, which is Kelvin Snooks in the number 3, which was started by James Poole. But as this gets closer and closer to the front, it's still incredibly hard to see where a passing manoeuvre may come. Postiglione is still in 4th place. He's close to Kelvin Snooks, and in fact is closing that advantage. So 3rd is closing on the 1st and 2nd combination, and 4th is closing on 3rd. Just under 0.8 of a second down on Kelvin Snooks. So they should be in the background of the shot fairly soon. There are the first two, the back of the image, going under the massive Pirelli banner. Lagrange, as you can see, down in 15th place after his drive-through penalty. And Simon Larsonoff, the 12 cars, had 2 drive-through penalties. He's down in 21st. Crime doesn't pay, you might say. The crime being a jump start, the other crimes being speeding in the pit lane. Oh, we've got a spinner out at Club. A lot of drivers have been running very wide on the right-hand side of the screen. Very few have snapped around towards the inside of the circuit on the left-hand side of the screen. But is that driver beached with the car on its belly, or is he just simply waiting to be flagged that there's a space in the traffic? And when you start with 45 cars, it's very, very hard indeed to find any form of space in the traffic, so that you can rejoin. Clock continues to count down. Gerhard Theresa continues to lead the race. Altoe continues to come home behind. He's surely got to make a move. Right, there's a back marker up in their path. 97 by the looks of things. That's one of the LC Cup class from cars from Van der Horst Racing, Van der Horst Motorsport. And being 97, that makes it William van Dyson. They've got past him very easily indeed. That hasn't affected them, but the clock is continuing to tick. 3.5 minutes remaining until the checkered flag will come out. Another gaggle of cars up ahead, cars of which, but they're way faster than. They shouldn't interrupt them, but they could just find themselves in their passage as they go around one of the corners. They try to turn into a corner, so the orange car tucks in behind Alto, just thinking, where? Can I use this traffic up ahead to try and second guess where Gerhard Therese is going to go? I'm going to go the other way and see if I can find an advantage as we go around them. Therese hangs on for now into the final 3 minutes. The gap behind them comes down. Kelvin Snoots edging in, and in fact a better lap for Snoots in third place. He's resisted the challenge of Vito Postiglione. In fact, gained a second on him that lap, take it out to the next closest thing to 2 seconds, the gap between Snooks in third and Postiglione in fourth. And now trying the outside line. His nose was fleetingly ahead, but diminishing returns for Alto, but he's got his nose properly in front now. So there it was, the perseverance paid off. But has he run too wide going into Aintree? Let's have a look. No, he's getting onto the Wellington straight in front. So through the very, very tricky sequence of corners where Farm feeds to Village, and then as they go into the loop, it was into Village that the outside line was taken. He hadn't had a sniff there before. Maybe that was a good thing, keeping his powder dry, not giving away any clue as to where a move might be made. But Giacomo Alto into the race, lead. Can he stay there, or will there be a fight back from Gerhard Therese? I must say, Therese didn't look to put a wheel wrong. Maybe it was a slight mistake into the corner, but certainly the bravado that gave the race a new leader, gave the race Giacomo Alto as a leader, was very well deserved indeed. Better end to the lap there for the 44 car, Vito Postiglione, getting closer again to Kelvin Snoots. It went forward, it went in and out, this advantage. Perhaps because of traffic, but right now it's come back his way. He was 1.9 seconds down, he's in fourth place. He's now only 0.9 of a second down in fourth place. So here we are on the final lap of the race. There won't be time for one other flying lap beyond this one. 44 still in fourth place. There is our race leader. It's the final lap, but there is traffic up ahead of him. But Giacomo Alto, as he sweeps through Club, another corner ticked off on this, the final lap. A pair of teammates up ahead. Hopes he's seen them up the inside of one. The second one, yes, now realises they turn into Farm. And it looks very well under control there, but still needs to pick his way past another back marker. Giacomo Alto going on towards victory in this race. He's just got enough of a breathing space down the Wellington Straight for one final time. 3 cars up ahead. Don't worry him too much, because once he gets inside this, well, he hasn't managed to get inside it, diving down into Brooklands. Whole gang of cars. We've got a spinner on the exit of Brooklands that's just passed him, but this is an opportunity for Therese to almost dive up the inside into Luffield, just enough space. And Alto must be thinking, I had this in the bag, and then suddenly with back markers and spinners in the final third of the lap, I've been really compromised. He's almost chopping across his nose. Through Woodcote they go for the final time. Therese is not close enough, so victory prevails there for the number 5 crew, and they will be delighted with that. And Therese, well, he raced long and hard along with Axel Jeffries. He takes second place. Third place to Kelvin Snoots, just enough to stay ahead of Postiglione. And then the top Pro-Am runner, number 71 in 5th place overall, Loris Spinelli, does the job. And Bogoslawski comes home, number 10 in 6th place. 7th place goes to car 92, and the top 10 are all across the finish line now, so we at least know who is where, but there might be a few post-race penalties as well. There have been a few transgressions, but Pro-Am honours, just to reiterate, went to number 71. Overall honours went to number 75. The great combination there. Giacomo Artois doing a very good run after Daniel Zampieri put down those paving stones at the start of the race. And honours went to, we talked to August Macbeth earlier in the race, and he brought that 66 car home in the lead of the class. Quite comfortably so at the end by nearly 20 seconds over the 96 car, with 69 coming home third. And the top car in the Lamborghini Cup class was number 98, down in 28th position overall. And number 98 was Van der Horst himself, Gerhard Van der Horst. So he had to work hard, he had to fight incredibly toughly and intelligently, but Giacomo Artois just got it all together with about a lap and a half to go, hit the front of the race. Then traffic looked as though it was coming back to have a bite at him, take a chunk out of his advantage. It certainly took a chunk out of the advantage, but Gerhard Therese just wasn't close enough to profit. Had a little look down into Luffield for the final time, but unfortunately there was more traffic in the way, couldn't make it stick. And so victory to the number 5 crew for Giacomo Artois and to Daniel Zampieri. So second yesterday, first today. That is a very useful haul of points from their visit here to Silverstone. And for Conrad Motorsport, it hasn't been that bad either. Points. But for Target Racing, there'll be the frustration for Dennis Lind and Simon Larson. Not one, but 2 drive-through penalties. And these are the things, as you say, it costs you absolutely dear. So however far Simon Larson was able to lap, it was never going to be enough with that penalty already hanging over his head. And the fact they had 2 drive-through penalties just compounded the misery. But second yesterday for Antonelli Motorsport. Victory today.
Marco.
Great delight from Giacomo there. Hugs all round, and that was a really, really good opening stint for Daniele Zampieri, who's the driver on the right, the slightly shorter one without the helmet. 29 Gerhard Therese brings it home in second place, just parking alongside. And Axel Jeffries will be waiting to greet him. And third to number 3, Kelvin Snooks, who started that. And sorry, James Pulley started it, Kelvin Snooks who brought it home. So Giacomo Artois and his teammate Daniel Zampieri probably about to be interviewed, but certainly that was a big chase for them down there. And Gerhard Therese worked very hard, ended up with second place. So drivers de-helmeting as the many who didn't end up with medals, because there are 45 starters. But let's go down and hear from the winners, Giacomo Artois and Daniel Zampieri.
Boys, a massive congratulations. What a win that was. How does it feel bringing the car home in P1?
Thank you very much. It's a big. I'm really happy. The overtake in the last lap was good, and then there was slower cars in front of me, so I managed to win the race, with my mate Daniel.
Daniele, now we really saw your potential today. That was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was really good, because it's our first victory this year with me and Giacomo. And Giacomo was second till last lap, and we were fighting because we want to win the first race in this championship together. So we did, and we are so happy and proud about the team for the work that we did.
You guys definitely should be proud. Congratulations. Thank you.
Proud they are, putting down the markers early in the season, and wonderful conditions. They'll enjoy the day all the more. But as Giacomo pointed out, he nearly got tripped up, having just taken the lead. But as it was, Gerhard Therese followed him home just over half a second in arrears. A great chase by Kelvin Snooks, moved him to within 4 seconds to take third place. Responded to the challenge from Vito Postiglione. Yesterday's winner had to settle for 4th today. Loris Spinelli, great run from him to win Pro-Am, worked his way up the order to 5th place overall, followed home by Bogusz Śliwski, but with quite an advantage over him along Mauron in 7th. Eduardo Liberati and Hans-Peter Koller fell down to 8th place at the end, but still a useful haul of points. The number 26 car drive-through penalty left them down in 13th place, but 2 drive-through penalties left the Larson-Lind combination that led the race down in 22nd. Pay attention to the rules and you can profit. Stumble over them and it's a big hit, as you can see. Gerhard van der Horst, 28th overall, he wins the Lamborghini Cup class, chased by Joseph Collado, and really chased, look, just 7/10 of a second between them. And then Willem van Dyssen, which is Gerhard van der Horst's teammate, coming home third in the Lamborghini Cup class. Many stories to tell up and down the field. 44 starters of Stephen Bourne's car didn't get going. But a wonderful day for the Lamborghini Super Trofeo racers here at Silverstone, and I think they'll remember this for a very long time, and certainly some really good racing out there, but particularly for the number 12 crew. A jump start and then a muck-up in the pit lane led to 2 drive-through penalties, and that removed them. But let's look back at the highlights of 50 minutes of racing action shared between 44 starters, and it was the start that proved controversial. Look at the black and white car that's moving up into the lead of the race. Did it go ahead before the start-finish line? Clearly it did, and the pole starter Edoardo Liberati squeezed down to third place. Axel Jeffries maintaining second place around the outside, but having taken the lead, Dennis Lind started to pull his way clear, while Liberati fought with all those behind and gradually fell away, leaving those top 2 clear. But then Liberati started to come back, a little bit of a spin up at Club. It wasn't to be the only one out there during the race. Here's another one further down towards the tail of the field, 2 going off together. It's funny how one car goes off, the second one often follows. And Carol Bash getting a little bit tail happy in 44. This was the car that won yesterday along with Vito Postiglione, but pit stops and drive-throughs changed the matter. Here's a further spin up at Club. Such a tempting corner to put the power down a little earlier than maybe the chassis wants. Then came the regular run of pit stops, and some of the exits, because the cars were coming out at very different times, were super close. And there we had Gerhard Therese being chased by Giacomo Altoe, and we had to see where the other cars were coming out. There was the car that got out in front. Liberati started it. Hans-Peter Koller took it over. He came out right with them, but they soon dispatched him. And then the battle was between the two. There was the change of lead with a lap to go, but it was far from over. Gerhard Therese fighting back, but then just as Giacomo Altoe had worked the traffic slightly better, looked as though he got the advantage and was going to be clear, suddenly he got slightly blocked, and then there was traffic on the final lap, but he just swept through to take the victory, to share with Daniel Zampieri, and the delight afterwards was absolutely plain for all to see. So delight after a wonderful race. Those were the highlights. And now the general hubbub around the pit area, the Parc Ferme area just down below the podium. Plenty of drivers, plenty of winners, because of course we had 4 classes: the overall class, the Pro-Am class, the Am class and the Lamborghini Cup class. So quite a host of drivers, with 2 drivers in almost all of those entries waiting to go up onto the podium. But obviously the overall podium will be the first one that we have. A few little interviews being conducted before Giacomo Altoe goes onto the top step of the podium. Daniel Zampieri waiting to have his go up there as well. Axel Jeffries on the left of the screen. He had a good run in the early stages of the race before handing over to Gerhard Therese, but had to settle for second on the grid and second step on the podium. It's only a small door, lots of people to squeeze through it from the staircase behind. Hopefully the right drivers will come forward to receive the right trophies. And let's get on with it, says Joe Bradley, welcoming the drivers up onto the podium. So hopefully they've identified the right drivers. The car's already starting to be guided away, but certainly for our race winners, it was a deserved run to the top. So Daniel Zampieri and Giacomo Altoe. And we're waiting for the third place runners as well. Kevin Snooch, you could hear his name being called, and James Pull as well. So here they come. James Pull, the British driver, Kelvin Snoots, the Dutchman. There we are, up into third place. Second place, Gerhard Therese from Conrad Motorsport. And the driver who started it, Axel Jeffries. And then for the winners from Antonelli Motorsport, Daniel Zampieri kicked it off, and Giovanni Alto brought it home. There's Giovanni coming out first, and Daniele following him out. So victory here today. Second yesterday, victory today. It's been a good haul of points for that duo. So the winning team's national anthem, and you can see the emotion and the pride on Giacomo's face there. Of course, Daniel's been there, seen it and done it, but still loves being up on the top step of the podium. But it's great to see a new face. Giacomo really is, I think, one we're going to be watching a lot climbing onto the podium through the course this year. But it's very close in the Lamborghini racing, and as we've seen, the margin between success and failure is remarkably small. Still, smiles from Gerhard Theresa and Axel Jeffries having to accept second place. It could have been victory, it nearly was, but maybe another time, guys.
It's the number 5 Antonelli Motorsport Lamborghini of Giacomo Artua and Daniel Zampieri. And the Pirelli Trophy to be presented by Mr. Matthew Branda from Pirelli Motorsports. And of course,
so 3 happy crews, but obviously the most happy one of all is the one on the top step. Matteo Brago from Pirelli presenting trophies to go with the other trophies. Those are the winners' trophies, and then it's the photo, and then we all know what follows next.
And then we'll open it up to the photographers downstairs. And the photographer trophies are in the air.
And a busy, packed day of activity at Silverstone. No sooner has one activity ended, and that was, of course, the Lamborghini Super Trofeo race. We have the spray of champagne already, the next activities lined up to start. Wonderful spring weather here at Silverstone, and I'm sure all the drivers of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo race, wherever they finished, have really enjoyed their time on this full Grand Prix circuit. 5.9 kilometres that really flows, opportunities to pass, plenty of width to play with, and allows them to use these Super Trofeo Huracan Evos to their full effect.
There's a lot more champagne to come. Well done, guys. Well done. Our overall podium.
So that was the overall podium. There'll be 3 more podiums to follow before the Master of Ceremonies will let them all go on their way to what will be, for many of them, a very happy lunch break indeed.
Congratulations once again to our overall podium. Our next podium presentation will be for our Pro-Am class.
And the next ones out will be the Pro-Am runners.
So please welcome
the
to
double
the
pro pairings.
In Pro-Am is the number 33, the Iron Lynx SRL, Francesca Ninozzi and Stefano Colombo.
Stefano Colombo, he's gone very well this weekend, so he's come away with the 3rd place
the number 8 VS Racing
in the Pro-Am class.
And Eduardo Liberati, our pole position car, and second in the Pro-Am class.
Number 8, Eduardo Liberati and Hans-Peter Koller. We heard from Hans-Peter on the grid. They ended up second in class. They were passed in the closing laps by Spinelli.
JC Perez and Loris Spinelli fighting the
JC Perez there, he is, and Loris Spinelli, who was the driver who really made that car fly. So victory in the Pro-Am class. It's been a good weekend for that duo.
On the podium. And now the national anthem of the winning team. Congratulations then, our Pro-Am podium, and please welcome to the podium to present our trophies.
So there was Loris Spinelli looking suitably satisfied with a very, very strong run again, and class victory.
SRL of Francesca Ninozzi and Stefano Colombo. Second place trophies to number 8 VS Racing, Hans-Peter Koller and Eduardo Liberati. And the first place trophy for Pro-Am goes to the number 71, Antonelli Motorsport, JC Perez and Loris Spinelli.
So the winners' trophies, JC Perez and Loris Spinelli up on the top step of the podium. That is for Pro-Am honours, and the smiles abroad.
Pirelli trophy to our winners in Pro-Am. And please hold your trophies high in the air for our photographs, gentlemen and ladies.
The podium appears to be about the only dark shaded spot on the entire circuit. It's been a wonderful sunny weekend, but this faces north to the main grandstand opposite the Heritage pits. For some of the drivers, a little bit of shade is probably quite nice. It's been a very warm day here at Silverstone. And the camera trying to get out of the way as the spray comes down. So one for the photographers and the families and friends and the mechanics. I'm sure a few bottles will be shared, dropped off the podium down to those below. So the AM podium to follow and the Lamborghini Cup class. But overall honours today, very well deserved by the number 5 crew of Daniel Zampieri, who kicked off, and Giovanni Altoe, who brought it home, but only just ahead of Gerhard Therese and Axel Jeffries.
The next presentation will be for our army class. And please welcome to the podium.
So it's a quick.
Number 69, Motorsport Lamborghini, Florian Schulze and Manuel Locke.
So the AM class runners coming out in third, second and first formation, and I can tell you the names of the winners. It's Andrzej Lewandowski and August Macbeth. They'll be the third ones out. Second place runner was Raffaele Giannoni on his own. And here we have August Macbeth coming out with Andrzej Lewandowski. So again, yet another international pairing in a winning crew. Certainly almost no grid is more cosmopolitan than the Lamborghini Super Trofeo grid.
And please welcome to the podium to present our trophies. Fabrica Taneji is the sales coordinator for Lamborghini Trofeo Europe. Third place trophy is going to number 69, Dom Motorsport of Florian Schulze and Manuel Locke. And second place, doing the race single-handedly,
That's Raffaele Giannoni, wearing the sunglasses in the shade, but very happy with his solo performance.
All chicken is always the old chicken.
Clearly the Joker in the pack as well.
And once again, the Pirelli Trophy, once again to be presented by Matteo Braga from Pirelli Motorsport. Congratulations to our winners. And if you please raise those trophies high in the air for official photographs. Trophies high in the air, gentlemen.
So with the 4-class format just proving, this is the third of them, this is the AM class, just proving how it's not about overall victory for everyone, it's about just making sure you can win your class as well as having a good time and picking up a trophy if you possibly can. So for all of these racers, it's a job well done here at Silverstone on the full Grand Prix circuit. And I'm sure they would thoroughly enjoyed their visit, because the weather has almost never been as kind as it has these past 3 days. And the last podium ceremony for the Lamborghini Super Trofeo runs is for the LC class, which is a Lamborghini Cup class. And it's a very... So that's a wrap now for the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. 2 fantastic races here on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. We've enjoyed it. I'm sure the drivers have, and hopefully you have as well. Goodbye.